Hello friends, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365. Another year is in the books, so it's time to grade all the major studios and how they handle their 4K releases in 2023. So with 2023 now in the rear views, I thought I would look back at this past year and how all the major studios handled their 4K content. Now, I will not be covering the boutique labels such as Arrow Video or Criterion. That will be a separate video coming out after this one. So check that out if you want to hear my thoughts on those. Now, for the major studios, I'm going to talk about Sony, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Lionsgate, Disney/20th Century Pictures, and so forth. And I'm going to give them all a kind of like a pros and a cons of their releases. Just a little bit of an overview, my thoughts, and I'm going to ultimately give them a grade. And once again, just as always with these type of videos, this is my list and my opinions. Yours will be very different, but I do encourage you to put in the comment section below, what would you grade the major studios and how they handle 4K in 2023? To start things off, I want to talk about Sony and their 4K offerings of 2023. If you talk to most physical media collectors, especially ones that are 4K adopters, they'll probably tell you that Sony is the benchmark in both picture and audio quality in regards to both new releases and catalog stuff being released on the formats. And I feel that continues here. But I will say, though, that their quote-unquote new release offerings were rather limited in this past year. We did get Gran Turismo coming out on 4K in November, which was a beautifully done 4K edition. It made my top 10 list. And Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, beautifully animated. But really, aside from that, there wasn't a whole lot that came out as far as theatrical releases. Now, one can say, hey, at least they leaned on their catalog titles. Not so much in 2023. In fact, if anything, Sony's going to be remembered for this past year as the year of the reissue for them. They've been doing this for the past couple years where they've been taking HDR-only releases under the Sony banner and just slapping on a new Dolby Vision grading inside a Steelbook, which is fine if you have a nice healthy balance. But unfortunately, it seemed to be a lot more of that and less true catalog releases. The Way We Were, for instance, came out, was one of the more notable, just straight up catalog releases, no frills or anything. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer was also another one, but there were very few, if any, other true catalog releases. I mean, we also get, of course, the Columbia Classics collections, which did not see an entry in 2023. That has now been announced for February 2024, so at least they're returning to that. But it just seems like it's kind of been too much of that, of the reissued Dolby Vision Steelbooks. Once again, it's something that I know some collectors enjoy, but I would have liked to have seen a lot more as far as catalog content goes. For 2023, I'm going to give Sony a grading of a B+. I still feel that they are the gold standard in picture and audio. That has not changed. But I do want to see a little bit more return to form going into 2024. Bring out the catalog stuff and a little bit less emphasis on the reissues. I think most of us would appreciate it. And also continue bringing out the new 4K releases for movies that are just hitting theaters. Of all the major studios I'm going to talk about in this video, I feel that Warner Brothers is probably the most consistent when it comes to releasing catalog titles versus new theatrical releases on the 4K formats. They've done an excellent job. Many of these, of course, include Dolby Vision, at least for the newer theatrical movies, minus one or two exceptions, such as Barbie, for instance. I still believe that they didn't think that was going to do really, bonkers business. So they kind of gave it just a basic HDR pass. It still looks beautiful. It's a really nice looking film, but I've noticed the trend in that area. And as far as old titles go, they've done a really good job. We had The Exorcist come out this year. Aside from a couple, issues in a few scenes on that disc, I do feel that the 4K is a nice release. Great Dolby Atmos track, and all the other titles that released this past year, I feel consistently were done well. Now, there are a few things I do want to talk about that be considered a little bit of a con from this past year. The Warner Brothers 100th anniversary. I really like that whole thing where they bring out some stuff and celebrate the entire catalog of Warner Brothers, whether it's in-house or acquired. That could be very much up for a debate. But I do appreciate a studio celebrating a milestone such as that. But did they have to kind of plaster the logo on every title that came out pretty much this past year? I understand to a degree. You really want to celebrate it and make an emphasis on it. But at least for me personally, and I've also heard and seen from other various people, that it's not really something you want to see permanently etched on your slipcover. I would have maybe gone with a sticker, which you could have peeled off or left on there at some point. But if you take Evil Dead Rise, I talked about that a few moments ago, you take this nice haunting image and you just plaster a gaudy 100th anniversary logo on top of it. That's just a nitpick. It really is. It's nothing too serious, but it's just something. It is what it is. But also in relation to the 100th anniversary, while I do appreciate a lot of the catalog titles that were released this past year, I mean, you had Rebel Without a Cause, Rio Bravo, I was very happy to see that. I still feel they could have done a little bit more. You know, you have such a plentiful array of titles that could have been mined from the Warner Brothers catalog that just did not see the light of day this past year. The Right Stuff, for instance, that was celebrating a major milestone and nothing. I don't know. It's just, I do think that, of course, there's all sorts of costs and finances in regards to these movies, but I would have liked to see just a little bit more catalog output in regards to the 100th anniversary. So my grade for Warner Brothers 4K releases in 2023, I'm going to score them an A-. I really appreciate their quality in both picture and audio. I want that to continue going forward into the new year, and I firmly believe they will. And continue also mining that catalog, because there are plenty of movies, and there are a couple significant ones celebrating anniversaries this next year that I feel would really do well on 4K. So keep it up, Warner Brothers. You're doing a good job. Next up, I'm going to talk about Universal and their 4K releases for this past year. Now, for Universal, I feel that they are probably in the middle ground as far as the major studios go. They're not quite, I would say, the top of their game, but they're also, once again, not the worst. They're pretty consistent, at least as far as releases go. You get a nice healthy dose of catalog and new theatrical that has not changed in the past couple years. So I want them to continue doing that. There's also a thing, not so much this year, but they were doing it a lot last year, where they were not literally announcing their 4K or any physical media release until like a week or two before. Sometimes not even then. It would just show up. That has largely been corrected. It's not still as quite as we would probably like it. Would like a little bit of a heads up, a month or two would be great, but it's gotten a lot better. And also their picture and audio quality, for the most part, is really good. There are some issues I'm going to talk about in a few moments, but if it's a from Universal release, I think those are pretty good, and as far as picture and audio go. And I will also say, as a collector, they put out some of the best looking steelbook artwork for this past year. I really enjoy some of the titles they released. I think Megan, that 4K is great. That steelbook is awesome. I love the packaging. Violent Night also just recently came out. Looks great. There are a lot of good examples. So if you're a steelbook collector, you're certainly eating good. Unfortunately, there are a few negative things I do want to go over in regards to Universal's 4K output for this past year. So let's dive right in. Their initial release of Blu-rays with a staggered 4K release a year or so later is a big one. This started about a year or so ago. Universal started releasing movies on Blu-ray, and then a year later, the 4K would just somehow start appearing. Once again, I'm going to talk about Violent Night. That had an initial Blu-ray, and then almost a year later, 4K. Megan, another example. And there are other titles, mostly in the horror genre, that have followed that suit. I'm not sure that's a way to really kind of get good graces from your audience or for your customers, because now you've officially trained me personally to avoid any Blu-ray release of a Universal title. The Holdovers, for example, is getting ready to come out, and I think it's going to get a 4K eventually down the line, so it's preventing me from wanting to pick it up. if Universal would flat out say, oh no, it's only going to get a physical Blu-ray, that's it, you can kind of make peace with that. But there's too much evidence suggesting that it's not going to be exactly the case for a lot of higher profile Blu-ray releases not getting 4Ks. It's just something that, unfortunately, you have to keep in your mind when it comes to Universal titles. And unfortunately, this next one is a biggie, and this is going to affect people that really like 4K and how they appreciate the picture and audio aspects. So also recently, Universal started putting out 4Ks, but as mod titles, which are handled not necessarily in-house from Universal. And some of the results have not been good. There have been quality issues. Promising Young Woman, for example, was missing the Atmos track. To their credit, they have since corrected it and reissued the discs. You have to go through a replacement program, but at least that was fixed. And movies such as The Black Phone, which I was very happy that was going to get a 4K. Once again, another staggered release. But the 4K was just awful. The quality on that disc was just terrible. And there are other titles. Love Actually, that just came out, was another mod title. Really bad quality all around. It's attaching a stigma. There's already a bit of a stigma when it comes to mod releases. It's been for years. They're not helping their case by doing this as well. So Universal, I think, needs a little bit more quality control or oversight on their mod releases. I'm not suggesting you don't do mod releases, but more oversight and quality control would absolutely be appreciated. For Universal, I'm going to score their 2023 4K output and quality. I'll give them a B-. I do really think that they have a lot to improve upon, especially with those mod titles, and maybe do a little less of the staggering 4K releases. That's something that is not very customer or consumer friendly, and it's going to train your customer base the wrong way. That's just unfortunately one of the results. But I will say that their in-house quality titles are really good. I think they're very consistent. Their steelbooks are top-notch. And I do feel that overall they're done well. I think that Universal definitely needs some improvements. So hopefully going forward in 2024, we will see it. Next up, I'm going to talk about Disney/20th Century Pictures and their 4K output for this past year. Now, of course, Disney's sort of the boogeyman of the major studios when it comes to 4K releases. There was a point where they were hardly releasing any, but certain things have come, I would say, to fruition this past 2023, and it looks very promising for 2024 and beyond. Maybe Disney getting back into the physical media game. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about 2023. It's been an interesting year. Let's talk about a little bit of the audio quality improving. I do feel that there are improvements happening. Of course, the famous term Disney Atmos in regards to their audio quality is still a thing, but I feel that overall it's a little less of a thing. Some titles released this past year actually sounded really good. Prey, for example, sounded fantastic. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, another excellent audio experience. So they are making some in-house changes, in my opinion, in that regard. Overall, their 4K releases have been fairly consistent as far as new titles go. So that has definitely improved. And also something that was welcome was the Disney Plus shows hitting actual 4K, not just Blu-ray. That would have been something else, by itself. But the 4K format, you have WandaVision, you have Loki Season 1, the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and there's promise of much more coming in 2024. That's really cool. So that to me says that Disney realizes that physical media is still something that you can profit from, and there's a demand out there, which there is. So I would like to definitely see more, but it's good that they're taking the step in that direction. Now, a few things that are not so good in regards to Disney 4K releases, aside from just completely bailing out of Australia, which, that's just, I still can't believe that that's actually a thing. Their actual 4K releases for a lot of their titles that came out in 2023 were somehow exclusives. They were not wide releases. Take, for instance, The Haunted Mansion. You could only pick that up if you went to Best Buy as a steelbook or ordered it from the Disney Movie Club. And I even think that Walmart had an exclusive. The same goes for a couple other 4Ks that came out this past year. But some of the more popular titles, such as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a Marvel film, got a wide release. I think I understand to a degree why they were doing that. I don't agree with it personally, but it's something that is, once again, it's not very consumer friendly. If you're a 4K collector, you may not know about these sort of things. You may not know, hey, why can't I go pick up Elemental on 4K? It's not at my Target. It's not, I have to either get a Steelbook or I have to go to Walmart. It's sort of brand confusion there. It's just something that they are not very, I mean, it's basically if a movie just bombed at the box office and you're going to have to go to a certain retailer to get it or order from the Disney Movie Club. I don't know if that's exactly the right call, but it's something that no other studio is really doing. So it's interesting that Disney is. And this is something that I'm really hoping is starting to change in 2024. I'm hopeful that it is. Their back catalog releases this past year were just not very good. In fact, very limited. I am very hopeful that the things are changing. They're going to turn around. This is, if we don't start seeing changes in 2024, I don't know what to really think, but their back catalog is begging to be mined. Give us 4K releases. Not only Disney, but 20th Century, the old Fox catalog. It's out there. We will buy it. I would absolutely love for a 4K of Master and Commander. Give it to us. There's just so many titles that are just languishing in Blu-ray hell that deserve 4K upgrades that Disney just sitting on the rights to. So let's see all this start to turn around in the coming year. Let's make it happen. So for my grade for Disney/20th Century Pictures in 2023, as far as 4K output goes, I'll give them a C+. Honestly, one could argue a little bit lower of a grade, but I do see signs of them turning things around, and that all began in 2023. Their implementation of Disney Plus shows on physical media is a big start. I know a lot of people appreciate that. And you sort of see the signs of maybe Disney turning things around as far as just general output of 4K goes going forward. I'm hopeful. I would still like to see a little bit less of the quote-unquote Disney 4K exclusives to particular retailers, but that's just a thing. I am hopeful that this grade can go up in 2024 and beyond. They can make it happen, so hopefully they will do so. I next want to talk about Lionsgate and their 4K offerings for this past year. And I do feel that Lionsgate is one of the upper tier as far as 4K quality goes in both visual and audio elements. They are beautiful looking and sounding discs. In fact, a Lionsgate title made my top pick for the year as far as 4K releases go. And I want to continue to see that going forward in many, many years. And I have no doubt it'll happen. And also one of the things about Lionsgate that I really liked this past year is they have some of the best steelbooks. A lot of them were exclusive to Best Buy, who going forward is no longer going to be handling steelbook releases. That seems to be going to Walmart. But their steelbooks not only are creative, but they have those slipcovers, which also add many times to the overall packaging, just the coolness of it. I definitely appreciate Lionsgate's output. I think their release of Fall this past year was one of the best steelbooks. And I just feel that if a movie is coming out from Lionsgate, it's getting a top shelf presentation. Now, if I have any criticisms about Lionsgate, I'm not exactly sure how much of this is really in their control, but I would like to see a little bit more in regards to catalog titles coming out from them. There were many that came out this past year. Young Guns recently, which also had a brilliant steelbook release. Contempt, a very classic film, looked gorgeous on 4K, and a few others here and there. But I do feel that they're sitting on a catalog of stuff that could be released on the formats, and for whatever reason, it's just kind of taking its time to do so. More of a thing, I would like to see a lot more healthier balance between new releases and catalog stuff, but it's a minor thing. They're doing a great job, and Lionsgate is definitely one studio that I have a lot of faith in. And while this is technically a criticism or a negative, it's also one that is, I know a lot of people don't like retailer exclusives when it comes to steelbooks. I just got done talking about the Best Buys moving over to Walmart, but a lot of people don't have access possibly to a Walmart, or they just don't like to go out to the stores, and it just makes buying a steelbook a little bit more kind of difficult. And it's just something that, maybe go another route or make them wide release. It's a minor thing. It's really a minor thing, but I do want to make notes because I do get comments all the time like, I don't want to pick this up at Best Buy. I don't want to pick this up at Walmart. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, but I do want to make a little bit of a note about it. For Lionsgate's 4K content release of 2023, I will score them an A. I think they're continually one of the best out there in regards to picture and audio. Their packaging is top notch. I think if their output of catalog stuff would have been a little bit more, this could have been a perfect score for them in 2023, but it's consistent across the board, and I want to see going forward much more of this, and I think we'll all be happier as 4K fans. And lastly, Paramount and their 4K offerings in 2023, I absolutely feel that they are on a relative upswing as far as quality goes, and they are one of the more consistent in regards to new theatrical editions coming out on 4K, as well as catalog stuff. They're doing a nice balance between the two, and I think as 4K fans, we really appreciate it. And also, and I just got done talking about Lionsgate and their exclusive steelbooks. Their steelbooks for Paramount are not exclusive. They are wide releases available everywhere. And they're also day and date many times with their slipcover counterparts. So I love that option. It gives the collector a choice, and it doesn't, anchor them to any particular retailer. So I really like that. I want more of that going forward. And when it comes to their new theatrical movies arriving on 4K, many times they look fantastic. They mostly all implement Dolby Vision, which I think a lot of videophiles will really appreciate. And of course, their audio is really top tier as well. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, one of their more recent 4K offerings, is a really good looking and sounding disc. Now, let's talk about their catalog stuff. In years past, DNR is and has been a problem. I do feel it's getting a little bit better. It's not still where it should be. I mean, where you plaster a movie relentlessly with the DNR, it's The Core, for instance, released earlier this year, looks terrible. That has been completely DNR'd, scrubbing away all that fine detail. But also some titles that came out that I was very much anticipating to look like DNR nightmares. Trading Places, I think looks really good. I think it's a really solid uptick. Ferris Bueller's Day Off also, I think, benefited very well for the 4K upgrade. Minimal use of DNR in many cases, or if not any. Well, you want more of that going forward. Paramount, take notes. Nobody likes DNR. So while it's still a problem for them, it's looking better overall. And this is something, while it is a criticism, it's really only noticeable, I feel, to younger people. Myself, I am used to this kind of turnaround. And when I'm talking about turnaround, is their 4K releases, or just any physical media releases coming from Paramount, are taking a lot longer from their initial theatrical run to when it actually arrives on physical media. Look, I grew up in the 80s. VHS tapes at times took a year or longer to arrive. The same could be said for Laserdisc and DVD, so it's nothing new. But I do hear a lot of complaints online that the turnaround for these movies to arrive on physical media, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, for instance, I think that was almost 6 months. And Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, similar. I think that was it was almost 6 months, 5 months, 6 months. It's longer than most studios out there, where you have companies like Universal that will turn on a dime and be like, okay, no, like a physical media release is coming like in 3 weeks. It's an exaggeration. I think a healthy amount for this day and age is maybe 60 days. That's a whole other conversation. Once again, this is just a nitpick, and it doesn't bother me personally, but it is something that I wanted to talk about, and it is a criticism I feel that many have. So my grading for Paramount and their 4K offerings for this past year, I will give them a B+. In years past, I probably would have scored them a lot lower just for the excessive DNR in their catalog titles, but as I said, it has gotten better. Once again, let's see more of that going forward. But their new theatrical stuff arriving on 4K is top tier. And also the fact that steelbooks are not exclusive. We really appreciate all that. And just the overall, I feel, balance between catalog and new theatrical stuff is really good. Let's see a lot more of that going forward. I would love to have a video next year where Paramount scores in the A range. We'll see if it happens, but overall, I think they are doing a good job. So that is my grading of all the major studios and their 4K offerings for this past year. I am very much looking forward to see what they all have for us in 2024 and beyond. I'm very hopeful that we'll see some turnarounds where it's needed and maybe a little bit more overall consumer-friendly offerings going forward. So we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic, but now it's your turn in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I talked about in this video? And also, what would you personally grade all the studios and their 4K output for this past year? In the meantime, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. So until next time, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365. I will see you at the movies.